Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for May 20th, 2025. Well, we're at a tipping point in two of the extreme crises in the world, Ukraine and Gaza. There have been developments in the last couple of days I'll catch you up on, but what's most important is to realize that to change these in the proper direction, that is away from tragedy toward resolution, we need an active mobilization of the citizens. And that's why the Schiller Institute is sponsoring a conference this weekend to present the alternative to war and possibly nuclear war, which depends on a mobilization of citizens. Now, so the question, therefore, is which way forward? There was an extremely important discussion of 2 hours yesterday between President Trump and President Putin. Trump described the tone and spirit as excellent, and Putin said that the discussion with Trump was very useful. Here's a more full report on what they each said. Trump on his Truth Social site wrote, "Just completed my 2-hour call with President Putin of Russia. I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. The conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties, as it can only be, because they know the details of a negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. The tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent." Now, Putin spoke to reporters after the call, and here's what he said. It was substantial, frank, and useful. He thanked Trump for his support for the renewal of the talks between Ukraine and Russia, which had been broken off by Kiev in 2022. He said that Trump expressed his support for a ceasefire. Putin said he responded, quote, "We too favor a peaceful settlement. What's needed is to find the most effective pathway. We are prepared to work with the Ukrainians on memoranda regarding a future peace agreement, regarding principles, timetables, and inclusively a ceasefire at a certain point," unquote. So that's the comments from the two leaders. Meanwhile, Zelensky issued a wild statement saying that the Europeans agree with him that there needs to be an international conference. He wants to avoid a direct discussion, but the important point here is that the Russians are not going to have some kind of separate deal. They need to have the whole discussion of what caused the problem and what's the basis for a mutual security agreement. And that's something that will have to be hashed out face to face. Now, meanwhile, Trump spoke with Pope Leo XIV after Vice President Vance met with him, and Trump said the Pope offered to host the talks, and he then added, "Let the process begin." Now, not so promising is what's happening in Gaza, where the Netanyahu's Operation Gideon's Chariots was launched in the last 24 to 48 hours. More killing, more destruction, and that's its intention. While the defense minister and others around Netanyahu say the goal is to destroy Hamas, and that's what Netanyahu says, but other people such as Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, who represent the extremists among the settlers, are saying the goal is to drive the Palestinians out of Israel permanently. And that's what is underway. More killing, the destruction of the last remaining hospitals. It was agreed, Netanyahu agreed, to allow minimum amount of food aid in after 70-something days of a complete blockade. So yesterday they let in 5 trucks of food, and tomorrow or today they'll have 4 more. Now what they need is 500 trucks a day. So imagine 5 trucks. You have over 1 million people who are starving, according to UN experts on the scene. Yesterday there were 30 airstrikes within 1 hour on Khan Yunis, where they've now pushed the majority of the Palestinians to try to destroy that area completely. Netanyahu keeps saying the goal is to destroy Hamas, that this is the target of the operation. And then he made a point. He said that we're willing to allow minimum food aid in to stop the accusations that we're committing war crimes. So if we only starve 999 million or 999,000 people out of a million, that shows that we're not committing war crimes. Well, that's the logic of Netanyahu. Now, the problem is too much of the rest of the world remains silent. There must be a joint communication from all the leading powers through the United Nations or whatever other organization or institution, but especially from individuals. And the fact that Pope Leo XIV is now involved is important. But it's going to require a solution that goes beyond simply saying we want a ceasefire. What's needed is an economic policy that serves the mutual interests of the Palestinians and the Israelis, as well as everyone else in the region. And that's why at the Schiller Institute conference, we will be focusing on the Oasis plan of Lyndon LaRouche, a plan for mutual benefit by freeing the water, freeing it of salt, allowing fresh water to be created in abundance for drinking, but also for agriculture. And that the link for that conference will be in the description section below. Now, we also had some useful history lessons from Jeffrey Sachs. And what Sachs talked about the last couple of days is the role of the British. And I want to read some quotes from him because his discussion of British imperial geopolitics is precisely along the lines that Lyndon LaRouche has been talking about for 30 to 40 years. And he pinpointed the role of Brzezinski, which of course you've heard from me repeatedly. He said in 1997, Brzezinski wrote that of the pressure against Russia that he called for, quote, Russia can't do anything about it. It's a second-rate country. It's going to have to go along with this expansion of NATO and this expansion of Europe eastward. Now, that's what Brzezinski said. Now, Jeffrey Sachs said, of course, he was completely wrong about that and got the U.S. trapped in this war, that kind of thinking. Then Sachs went on to say, Trump is trying to extricate us from this war, and he's doing the right thing. And he should do exactly the same thing, by the way, with Netanyahu. Extricate us from this absolutely obscene war as well. Then he concluded the statement by saying, what's interesting is the British. Even though they're not an empire anymore, they still have these fantasies of empire. And what's he referring to? British geopolitics, the idea that you can break apart a Russia-China alliance, you can ensure there'll be no common agreement between Europe and Eurasia that will interfere with the control of international trade in the hands of the City of London. This is the old Venetian strategy, the old idea that you have a sole power, sole superpower. This is the Wolfowitz doctrine. It's the unipolar order. It's the so-called rules-based order that Blinken went around the world blathering about. But what's the reality? It's you prevent economic development policies in order to leave the global south as a source of cheap raw materials for the colonial countries. But that era is over. So why is the United States, or why was the United States under Biden continuing to act as though that's the present and future? The future is going to change. It has to change. But it has to change in the right direction. And that's what we'll be discussing this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the 24th and 25th. As I said, the link to register will be in the description section below. I hope you'll take advantage of it. Make sure that you help us build the attendance for this. This is the kind of moment where an intervention from outside the establishment will make the difference. So thanks for joining me, and I'll be back.